Members of the board, Mr. Thurman, in support of the Bridge Initiative Job Georgia Graduate Program, will create a partnership with the school district and the Georgia Department of Education and the Department of Labor. I'm sorry.
Department of Labor.
Yeah, the Department of Labor. to implement a strategy to prevent school dropouts and to improve the graduation rate in 5 high schools. Today, we have Ms. Deidre Wakefield from the Department of Labor that will give a brief overview of the Job for Georgia Graduates Program.
Mr. Chair, prior to Ms. Wakefield, I'd like to add to the introduction of Dr. Watkins, providing I first became acquainted with the Job for Georgia Graduates Program prior to becoming the Labor Commission, primarily thanks to this young lady here who invited me to participate in an activity with Georgia high school students. And as fate would have it, I became the Labor Commissioner, and she became a very critical component of what we were doing, particularly with young people, preparing them for the world of work. And she will explain in some detail this very important initiative, Job for Georgia Graduates, and the profound impact it has on improving graduation rates for what many of us refer to as at-risk students. And so I'm just honored that Ms. Wakefield would come, and I'd like to also present you to the board and my friends here in the DeKalb School District.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm pleased and very appreciative to come and provide an overview of the Jobs for Georgia Graduates program. Jobs for Georgia Graduates is the state affiliate of the national organization Jobs for America's Graduates, which is one of the longest running school-to-work transition programs in existence today. The JAG national program was developed actually back in 1980, and currently there are 34 states affiliated with this national organization. Georgia became a state affiliate in 1987, and the program runs under the auspices of the Georgia Department of Labor. There is basically one program model which addresses the needs of at-risk youth. We're targeting youth that have vocational as well as personal barriers to employment. Once these youth are identified, we have a staff person in place who works with the students, number one, in achieving at least a 90% graduation rate, employability skills, career counseling, as well as leadership and self-development skills. Once the students graduate from high school, we provide 12 months of placement and follow-up services. The Georgia Department of Labor is currently implementing the program in 24 high schools across the state. We have 9 programs that are serving just senior students, and then we have 15 programs that are multi-year, meaning the students that enter the program in the 9th grade have the opportunity to remain in the program during all 4 years of high school. Our graduation rate, and I just went back about 6 years, we have achieved at least a 94 to a 97% graduation rate with our program participants. Again, the students that we're targeting have vocational as well as personal barriers to employment. Some of these barriers might include being behind grade level, low GPA, high number of absences, perhaps they don't live with their parents, perhaps mom or dad didn't graduate from high school, or their parents might not be employed. Those are some of the types of students that we are working with. With the multi-year program, our caseload runs anywhere between 40 to 45 youth. And then again, with our senior application of the program model, our caseload averages about 40 high school seniors. Our career coordinators are employed by the Georgia Department of Labor. However, they are assigned to one high school, and they serve there full time in providing the program and model services to our students. Employability skills training is introduced to our students, teaching them about the world of work, career development, job attainment skills, job survival skills, as well as leadership and self-development. All of this is done by the career coordinator in the classroom setting. Also, in conjunction with the employability skills, there's a club component of the program called the Career Association. At each one of the sites, the students select their own officers. They have monthly club meetings, and they plan activities throughout the year centered around leadership development, career preparation, and social and civic awareness. Our seniors also have competitive events each year, and some of the competition includes public speaking, decision-making skills, outstanding leadership, creative problem solving, as well as there are community service projects involved. This is not an early release or a work study program in that we are not pulling students out of school to go to work. Our main objective in working with the students, again, is to ensure that they meet all the requirements for their high school diploma. There is quite a bit of case management involved in that our coordinators are not only talking with students and parents and teachers and administrators, all in an effort to make sure that they graduate from high school. Once the students do graduate from high school, we provide 12 months of placement and follow-up services. We're looking for at least an 80% positive outcome with our students, meaning they need to be working full-time or part-time. They have entered post-secondary education or have enlisted in the military. When we do our 12-month placement and follow-up services with the students, we're not just taking the student's word for it, but if they are employed, we're following up with the supervisor on a monthly basis. If they are enrolled in post-secondary education, we're contacting that institution on a monthly basis to verify enrollment, as well as if they have enlisted in the military. I'd like to share with you some of our program outcomes for the past 6 years. For the class of 2008, we followed up on 794 students with a 95% graduation rate and an 89% positive outcome rate. And our further education rate, meaning these are the students that completed 1 year of college, was 64%. Class of 2009, our graduation rate was 96%, with a positive outcome rate of 86% and a further education rate of 64%. For the class of 2010, we followed up on 869 students, 97% graduation rate, 90% positive outcome rate, and a 68% further education rate. For the class of 2011, 97% graduation rate, 90% positive outcome rate, and a 71% further education rate. Once we begin doing the placement and follow-up services, we'll begin June 1st, right after the students graduate. And then again, with the 12 months, we will not stop our placement and follow-up services until May 31st of the following year.
Also, members of the board, the 5 high schools that will be participating in this program will be Clarkson High School, Cross Keys, Lithonia, McNair, and Towers. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the use of $250,000 to Race to the Top Funds grant to implement the Jobs for Georgia Graduate Program. This action will establish a partnership with the Georgia Department of Labor.
Is there any discussion? Dr. Carter?
I'm sorry, Mr.
No, go right
Superintendent, you
ahead.
want to comment?
Yeah. Just one thing before. Those 5 high schools that Dr. Watkins mentioned are the 5 high schools with the lowest graduation rate in DeKalb County. Also, Mr. Ken Smith, who's the national president of Jobs for America's Graduates, I talked to him last week. The AT&T Foundation has agreed to contribute $30,000 to DeKalb County to help to subsidize the implementation of this program. So let's give AT&T a round of applause, please. That will be coming along.
Thank you, Dr. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. This is an excellent opportunity for our students and the high school's chosen. I think that it is extraordinary. I'm a big fan of PAE, and so I'm really excited about the potential here. I just want to make sure I'm clear. When I look at the memorandum of understanding, it indicates that the program will be in regularly scheduled classes to a minimum of 40 students. Are we thinking 40 students per school will be touched by this? More than that? Is the program rolling out in such a way that it's no more than 40 students in a class, but potential for multiple classes in a building? Help me
There will
understand.
be, yes, there will be 40 students total in the program, so there will be small class sizes of maybe 10 to 12 students per class. Because these students need more attention, the class sizes will be dramatically smaller than the regular class sizes.
Talk to me a little bit about the Leadership and Career Development Conferences. One of the things that I know happens already is you have a Skills USA, you have a DECA, you have a, at the collegiate level, it's Phi Beta Lambda, and I forget what it is at the high school level. Are those the programs that these students are being fed to, or is there a statewide program just for students who are in the Jobs for Georgia?
There's a statewide program just for those students that's in this Jobs for Georgia Graduates program. Students will still have opportunity to be in those other student leadership organizations, but for these students that's in these 40 students that's participating in this program, they will be a part of the student leadership for Jobs for Georgia Graduates specifically. They have their own affiliation nationwide, and as students compete, they will go on and compete against other students in the program across the state and across the nation.
So it'll be local, state, and then national competition. How do we fare as a state? I'm very competitive. I win at the national level in collegiate DECA, so.
We had 4 young ladies to attend the National Student Leadership Conference in Washington, D.C. this past November. All 4 competed, and one received first place in the kind of poster contest. So one of our young ladies placed first in that area.
Congratulations, that's exciting. I know that people may not understand the value of this program beyond just what happens at the local level. When they go to state and national, they're also being exposed to career opportunities and actual employment. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
That's a big win for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayfield.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. I was ecstatic when I saw this. I'm very pleased. I do have a couple of questions, I guess. One, maybe a clarifying question first, having to do with the significance of the difference between graduation rate and positive outcome. What exactly does that mean?
First of all, graduation rate, that particular percentage is making sure that the student meet all the requirements so they can graduate from high school. The positive outcomes is what happens after graduation. So that's a percentage that we want those students that are, like Ms. Wakefield said, going into the military, going to post-secondary, or go directly to work. Those are positive outcomes that are tracked by this particular program, and that percentage is reflected on the number of students that are in the program. Then those positive outcomes after graduation is also tracked, and that's the percentage for that particular piece.
Okay. I want to dive a little bit into the weeds. If we don't have the information now, hopefully we can get it. I wanted to understand what we anticipate will be the impact. So when we look at your model for students defined as at risk, what size of our student population fits that profile? I guess would be the first question I would ask to understand exactly when we talk about 40, and I'm assuming this is 40 students per school, is that? No?
Total per school. Each school will have 40.
That's what I thought. That wasn't clear. Each school, I didn't, each school of 40 per school, yes.
Right, that's what I interpreted, but I didn't know if that was the case. So when we look at those numbers, I mean, what does 40 per school look like within the population?
Well, it has just from my own experience, what you're really doing is you're changing the behavior paradigm. That's what you're doing, because you're establishing a model among students who may not have been viewed as being high achieving or successful or focused on career objectives.
Right.
All of a sudden, the 40, actually, what do you want to call it? It becomes somewhat epidemic because you're changing attitudes and outlooks, you're changing the culture.
Right, and that part I get. I mean, I would
So
expect.
40 students in a school with a very low achievement history
Right.
is significant.
Oh, no, I understand that. I guess I'm looking for the numbers now. And when I say that, I mean, if we've got, say, a 48% graduation rate at Towers, just using them as an example,
I see what you're saying.
what percentage of that 62% that's not graduating do we define at risk that matches your criteria so that we can see if you do get 40, what that means per school in terms of actual impact that could result in the improvements in the school's graduation rate as a result of getting, say, 95% graduation rate with that 40. Does that make sense?
Well, socioeconomically, we 71% of our students are defined
Right,
as
it's poor.
economically disadvantaged.
Right, but does that translate to at risk, I guess? And that's
Not
why-
always. That's the
Right.
point. That doesn't necessarily mean
So
you're
let-
at risk.
Right, so let me just, right, exactly. So let me just tee the questions up. We probably won't answer them today.
Okay.
But I would like to have an understanding of what we expect the impact on the school graduation rate will be
Okay.
by virtue of hitting 40, by virtue of having these 40 students out of that population.
Okay.
Okay. The second thing I'd like to better understand, and again, perhaps not today, would be what the extended infrastructure needs will be. When you look at the responsibilities for the school district as an example, which is on page 3, and one would expect this, item number 3, the school will also provide the use of other school facilities and equipment necessary to deliver the services of the accredited JGG program. So the presumption there would be that the additional capacity in those other resources would in fact be available, and that if they weren't available, that we would need to expand the capacity of those in order to have efficacy in these numbers. And so that sort of plays into what our budgetary expectations will be, particularly for those schools, if we need to expand capacity in order to accommodate these students. Okay? And then I guess thirdly, and this will be the last one, and that is to understand what would it take, in fact, to expand the capacity of the program so that perhaps students who may not be in that school, I'm assuming this is a volunteer program, that if they are not in that school, that they might have access to those resources if you don't get the 40 at that school.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand.
Dr. Morley?
I'm really excited about this program when I saw it dealing with children from a holistic perspective. You know, when my children were attending school and the term at risk, and I know there's a federal definition of at risk, and one of the things I've said is every child is at risk by the fact that they have to leave home and sometimes even being home. But the fact that we're actually looking at yeah, they really are. And I think that we have to begin to look at all of that. But that we're actually looking at these schools and looking at success and looking at academics and looking at the impact. We have to start somewhere, and I look at this as a start. And we have these 5 schools, and the numbers may seem small, but you know what? When you have 40 in a school, the impact will be so much greater because you're going to see other people seeing what the benefits are. And when you're looking at the success and that you're actually following them. And we don't want to admit that we track students, but we do track students, okay? And so we need to recognize that to track them through life and be able to prepare them for life and for a career, not just for a job, saves a lot. So I commend you all. I commend the superintendent and all that we're doing and trying to bring these programs together. And I just want to continue to remind ourselves that we are new on this board. We're just a year old. This month, the anniversary of March was a year, well, last month. And all the things that we're doing to make sure of academic success for our children. And if that academic success is for our children, it's going to impact the community, it's going to impact everyone. But to look at these students and give them an opportunity. And it was ironic because Dr. Irwin and I were over at MLK this weekend, and we were just talking about, you know, trainings and skills and things like that. Well, we need to get back to those areas and begin to look at that child might not have college on their mind, but at the same point that they can have something to be able to look towards and say, you know what, I still am somebody, there's an opportunity for me and I can go forward. So I'm excited about it. Anything that deals with the total child from a holistic perspective, count me in.
Thank you, Dr. Marley. Dr. Irwin, your light is on.
Thank you. Great presentation. I think the program is excellent, especially I love the military piece. I had one question. As you put these programs into play, have you seen any increase in parental engagement with these programs?
Yes, absolutely. We have programs throughout the year, initiation and installation ceremonies. We invite the parents. We have conferences, luncheons, and we invite the parents.
And I can attest to that, Dr. Irwin. One other thing, and then I'll let this go. And of course, when you look at the demographics, the socioeconomics of the students who are most challenged in terms of graduation rates, we know that our young black males suffer greatly in terms of positive outcomes in graduation rate. So I know that at least in 2010, we were keeping the data by race and gender. So you all will be surprised. Ms. Wakefield, what was the graduation rate for the African American males who participated in the program? Say just for 2010, you don't have to go all the way back. Just the most recent year where you had the statistics. And I know you didn't expect me to do it, but here you go.
The class of 2010, we had 196 African American males. The graduation rate was 98.98%.
Wow.
Thank you.
Mr. McMahon?
Thank you, Chairman. And just to add a little clarity to your request on what this would do for those schools. So with a 90% graduation rate of these 40 applicants, that'd be like 36 additional. So if you add that to the current graduation rate of like 44, 42, 46, the new number would be like 57, 58, just with the implementation of this program. Of those additional 36 graduates, which is just a small piece of the puzzle that we can implement, and start it off. And then it'll have the snowball effect, right? As once they start to see the success, they'll want a piece of the success, the other kids. So it'll be like a Pied Piper effect, right? So anyway, with that being said, thank you. And that's just the number crunching that I know we like to digest.
Thank you. So, Mr. Superintendent, that means with those numbers, you have to go get 4 more programs. Is there any opposition to placing this item on the consent agenda? Hearing none, this item will be placed on the consent agenda.